Hey, good morning and welcome to the fourth hour. It's great to have you along. Monday mornings, this is one of those Monday mornings where I'm feeling like I'm in an old West bar fight. You just been beaten up and tables smashed, and chairs thrown through a window. That's how I'm feeling this morning. Some Monday, some Mondays are like that. You know what I mean? So thank you so much for being here. There are some updates since we got off the air this morning. The president will be meeting with his national security team in the Situation Room today. They are expecting an attack from Iran against Israel. And so the vice president will also attend the meeting, the White House said. So this came after Lloyd Austin, who's the Secretary of Defense, spoke with his counterpart in Israel yesterday to reiterate U.S. support then for Israel as this situation is escalating. We had Anthony Blinken, who has been in contact with people since yesterday, and saying that they are expecting that an attack would be imminent, and possibly as early as today. That's what Blinken said yesterday. So apparently, the White House is taking this very seriously. And again, the president will be meeting with his national security team in the Situation Room today. I think that will be early this afternoon. I think like 1 or 1:30 Central Time that the president will be meeting with them today. So that's a big story since I got off the air. Also, the stock market and what's going on with the stock market. Man, the stock market, this is the New York Post. Stock market bloodbath sees Dow, NASDAQ plummet as renewed recession fears trigger global sell-off. And you look at some of the photos of people, like that, and it's like, oh, yeah, that's not very uplifting, very concerning. Let's get into I want to get into that story in a little bit more detail. Also the same thing going on over at Breitbart. Black Monday, world markets spooked. Japan's Nikkei 225 leads sell-off with double-digit plunge. Crypto hammered. Recession fear takes hold. So this continues to be a big story. I just want to touch on it. Again, this is from the New York Post. So they're saying Wall Street's main indexes, stupid pop-up ads, nosedived today. The blue chip Dow Jones Industrial Average plunged more than 1,100 points after the opening bell, while the tech-heavy NASDAQ Composite fell nearly 5%. The declines followed broad sell-offs overseas. Yeah, and I mentioned that on the radio show this morning that there were stories out early because the Asian markets are ahead of us, and already things were not looking good. With the K index then suffering its worst single-day retreat since the Black Monday crash of 1987. It closed 12.4% lower, and so it's not looking good for U.S. markets either going on today. So bloodbath on Wall Street is the way it's being phrased today at the New York Post. Other stories that I wanted to share with you, these are follow-ups. These are all new to, and I did not share any of these stories earlier this morning, in other words. So this is all new. The Blaze has got a story. I continue to think the U.S. Secret Service and the state of the Secret Service and what happened with the Secret Service and that Trump assassination attempt, I continue to believe this is a huge story, which is one of the reasons I believe that is that the media is doing everything they can to avoid talking about it. The media wants to focus on, the debate, Nancy Pelosi's comments about Biden up on Mount Rushmore. We talked about that on the show a little bit this morning. And again, that story is trending. And it takes a lot more than me just clicking on that story or talking about it to make that story trend throughout. We're talking about stories that are trending not only nationally, but internationally. So there are a lot of forces out there saying, hey, shiny object over here, trying to distract and your attention from what I think are the far more significant events. And one of them is what's going on with Secret Service. So the Blaze Media's got a story this morning. U.S. Secret Service did not have agents in local police command center when Trump was shot. So they had no agents stationed in the local police command center when local police were talking with each other very urgently, concerned about what was going on that rooftop. Secret Service was absolutely oblivious to it. They were not hearing those same radio messages. Instead, they were communicating via cell phone messages. That's how they were communicating. Cell phone messages. It's like, well, there's a real high-tech option for you for secret police. I think it was Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul, I heard last week on Clay and Buck show talking about it. And he said, go out there and buy a number of, radios so that these people can communicate with each other, local law enforcement, and then, dispatch a number of radios before the event. So they're all communicating then via radio, and then afterward, collect all the radios and then take them to the next event. And he said, these things aren't difficult. What you see is, folks are, I fear that folks just become way too complacent. And when you're with the Secret Service, complacency is like deadly, and it'll be deadly for the president, or it'll be deadly for presidential, candidates who are running. It's not necessarily for the Secret Service officers themselves. So the acting director of Secret Service, Mr. Rowe, said that these radio dispatches then warned of a man with a gun on the roof. Secret Service never heard them. And he said it was so apparent to me in this incident, in the final 30 seconds, which has been the focus of what happened before the assailant opened fire, there was clearly radio transmissions that may have happened on that local radio net that we did not have, he said. And so we have to do a better job of co-locating, leveraging that counterpart system, and this is going to drive our operations going forward. I just think some of this is just absolutely gobbledygook. These people inside the Beltway, they talk in this government speak and agency speak, and I think you find people in law enforcement generally, they kind of do that anyway. They got their own language. And when it comes to addressing these issues to the public, best advice that I could give to law enforcement of all kinds: drop the language that you use when you're talking to other law enforcement. Drop that language. Speak to people as if they're 5 years old, and don't use any of that terminology. Make it as simple and clear and concise as you can. So again, Rose said a Pennsylvania state police official was in the Secret Service security room on July 13th, but no Secret Service officials were in the local police command center. And he said if a state or local agency sets up a unified command post, maybe we need to be in that room as well. Maybe. I mean, again, with respect to with acting Secretary Rowe, maybe you need to be in that room. Maybe you think. I mean, again, he says, as opposed to just being in another room and rely on that counterpart system. Senator Ron Johnson disclosed that radios provided by local law enforcement to the Secret Service for cross agency communication were never used. So you had local law enforcement providing radios to Secret Service, but they never used them. The more we learn, the more troubling it becomes. So, again, this is a story at Blaze Media. So just go to theblaze.com, theblaze.com. It's a big story this morning there. Also, something else I wanted to share with you this morning. Donald Trump, according to the Washington Examiner, the headline caught my attention. Trump lingers on Biden despite pivot to radical Harris. So Donald Trump is still going after Joe Biden despite Kamala Harris now being the allegedly the Democrat presumptive nominee. Trump has joined Republicans in painting Harris as a San Francisco radical who failed Biden's border czar. Failed as Biden's border czar. But he has simultaneously continued to incorporate material about Biden into his speeches. He was choking like a dog, Trump said. He was talking about the debate that they had. He was choking like a dog, Trump says. And he said, they did a coup. He just doesn't know it. Talking about the president's age. The preoccupation with Biden suggests a degree of whiplash among Republicans who just days ago were hoping Democrats would consider replacing him at the top of the ticket. Did Republicans hope that? We talked about that. None of us were hoping that way. We were hoping Joe Biden was going to be the nominee. I mean, seriously. It was Democrats that were anxious to get rid of Joe Biden, not Republicans. I wanted Joe Biden to have to defend his record. I wanted Joe Biden to run on his record. So Trump, again, now this is a piece. So Trump is at a rally. Now, again, how long Donald Trump, we know, speaks for some time. Donald Trump loves to talk. He's a great talker. And so we know Donald Trump talks for a period of time. So what? He brought up Joe Biden. What is he? Is Joe Biden now verboten? We cannot bring up Joe Biden at all. Donald Trump cannot bring up Joe Biden at all. We can't have any mention of Joe Biden at all because Kamala Harris is some of the times, sometimes I wonder about the folks at the Washington Examiner. Because so Donald Trump makes a comment or a few comments. Big deal. Big deal. It's and it's the same thing. Trump, again, I think Trump and many of you disagreed, and which I appreciate. You and I are allowed to disagree, or you're allowed to disagree with me. Let's put it that way. About Trump and his comments to the black journalist last week. And that became the whole news cycle. Even on the Sunday shows this week, George Stephanopoulos was wanting to talk about what the comments that Trump made. And but it was just a portion of his comments. So he spoke for like 35 minutes. And so for a minute, maybe he's tops. He's talking about Kamala Harris and about her heritage. Is she Black American? She Indian American? I thought she was Indian American. So he touches on that for a minute. And then he goes off to a number of other things. And it's the media that just focuses on that. And they don't want to share anything but that. And the world becomes nothing but that. And that's a problem I have. Now, again, and I'm not making excuses for Trump. We talked about this on the air this morning. I think Donald Trump because the media is that way, and they're going to continue to be that way. They're not going to change their game. Knowing they're going to continue to be that way, then Donald Trump would be well advised to knock it off. You know what I mean? He would be well advised to stay focused every moment. And there are things that come into your head, and it happened to me on the show earlier this morning. We were in the 6 a.m. hour and we were talking about some of this, and I had some thoughts that come into my mind, and I start formulating about how I'm going to articulate that. And I'm like, no, bad idea. Move on. Bad idea, bad idea, bad idea. You know what I mean? I think Trump needs that voice in his head going, no, bad idea. Don't do that. Move on. Leave that alone. Focus on this. Focus on this. Focus on this. He has got to be focused like a laser. And I think if he starts doing that, and again, he may be focused on, now that doesn't mean that Trump should ignore all questions or responses from Kamala Harris or not respond to any of those things, but do so in a very focused way and then right back to the economy, the border, bam, bam, and hit those things over and over and over and over until she's, well, she's half dizzy anyway, but until she's just dazed. And I think that's what he has got to do. So again, the Washington Examiner, with respect to this story they've got here this morning, Trump's lingering on Joe Biden. Define lingering. A few comments out of 90 minutes maybe at an event, or 60 minutes at an event that Trump speaks, and out of a few minutes he talks about Joe Biden. He is, even though I think many in the media want to pretend like he's not, he is the president of the United States. Joe Biden remains the president. He didn't, he hasn't resigned. He hasn't stepped down. He's still the president. He's still got an enormous amount of responsibility, as we were talking about earlier with this, concerns about what may be happening right now with Iran attacking Israel and all of that. So let's cool it down. I get so frustrated with the media. I mean, that's a daily occurrence. These frustrations with the media and the way they want to try to spin the story. And if, Donald Trump speaks for, maybe it's a paragraph of comments out of, pages long speech, but we're going to focus on that one little thing. And the media does that all of the time. It's gotten worse, I think. In fact, it's gotten absolutely worse. So that's a look at some of the big stories this morning. Sean, thank you. Sean said, remember to give the fourth hour a like. Sean, I'm always glad you're here. And I hope you'll tell your friends, because I am getting more and more subscribers on YouTube. So I want to thank all of you who are following me here on YouTube. That's why I'm trying to plow right into it right out of the get-go, trying to get to new stories for you right away. Not wishing to waste your time. I also wanted to share a few emails from the radio show this morning, because these are emails I didn't have a chance to share on the air. Chuck had sent me an email earlier this morning because I was talking about Frank Luntz, and Luntz was saying that Donald Trump should focus on Kamala Harris. What are your accomplishments as vice president? What are her accomplishments as vice president? Can you name any? Does she have any? What are Kamala Harris and her accomplishments as vice president? And Luntz says, hammer that. Just hammer that issue, ad nauseum. And so Chuck sent me an email. Luntz is correct. There's enough to criticize, Harris' failures and ineptness. Indisputable facts cannot be denied. The subject of race and how she's conveniently changed her identity only gives the Democrats an opportunity to distract from the facts and further their mantra that Trump is a racist. Simply put, Trump talks too much. Yeah, sometimes Trump does. Trump does. And I've said this many times that Trump is his own worst enemy, I think. Some he does talk too much. Absolutely agree with that. And then I got also Brian sent me an email and we were talking about and he sent this as we're Nancy Pelosi and the whole business about Biden on Mount Rushmore and Brian said pretty much any big news story or any manufactured outrage that's going on is simply a distraction from the train wreck the country has become. There's a lot of truth to that, Brian. Absolutely. Kurt sent me I love Kurt's emails. Kurt sent me, he said, thank goodness I swallowed my coffee before you said the comment about Biden being on Mount Rushmore. He said, I finally figured it out. The left acts like they're actors on a movie set rather than some sort of constraining reality. Whatever you want, just change the script. Want to edit a mountain? Use computer graphics to change it. Forget about engineering constraints. Just satisfy your emotions. Logic is probably phobic of something anyway. Yeah. And Kurt is right. Emotions. It's the left is all about emotions. They are looking at everything through the prism of emotion. The left is, generally speaking. And then we were talking about whether I got a great number of phone calls in the last half hour of the radio show this morning. And if you missed that, you can find it at KELO.com. We podcast the entire show so you can listen to it at your convenience. And we try to package those in smaller, bite-sized kind of segments. So you can listen to a segment rather than listening to the entire hour or several hours of the radio program. So we were talking about a debate between Trump and Kamala Harris, whether or not there should be in your thoughts. And Sandy sent me an email. And Sandy said, yes, there should be a debate. Look how many minds were changed after the Biden debate. Her record should be on the line, and how nervous she gets when she has to speak without a teleprompter. Sandy, it was a really great point. And I appreciated you sending that to me. So I really love getting your emails, your phone calls. Um, I appreciate you guys so much. So thank you for being here. Please hit that like button. Makes just a huge difference. If you got like-minded friends, tell them about what we're doing, and invite them to join us. Our numbers are growing on YouTube, and it's thanks to you. So thank you so much. You take care, my friend. So long until tomorrow, and may God bless.